Ding 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 ding. Hi, Johanna at EvaJohanna Studios here. I promised a friend to show how to make a very simple kind of fibula. And the fibula is basically a safety pin. And this is a very simple design that has been used since at least the Bronze Age, if not earlier, or at least as early as we have used metal and metal wire. If you see extant examples, they are often made out of bronze. I'm going to show you how to use brass wire, how to make very simple, maybe simplified versions, but they have the same basic construction. As I said, I'm going to use brass wire. This one is 0.8 millimeters thick. I use the kind of wire that you find in shops that sell materials for people who make model boats and model airplanes. I prefer this because it's hard, and you want a pin to be hard and not too bendable. It's still bendable, but not too bendable. It will still hold when you use it as a safety pin later. The craft wire that you buy in craft shops are often, I feel, a bit too soft. When I make this pin, I just have to decide the size. Now, this is a pretty thin wire. I can't make it too big, or the wire will be too soft for it and won't hold the shape, or the fibula won't hold the shape. But I imagine that this will be something that will, for instance, pin together a peplos or a toga, the sleeves of a peplos, for instance, and so it doesn't have to be very large. You can see this one is, I don't know, what is it, 2.5 centimeters, an inch, or something like that, long. I use side cutters. I like the one who has a really flat side. I like them, they're easy to work on. I like to use, what are they called? Nose pliers? I don't remember what they're called. But they look like this anyway. They're very, very useful. I also like to use flat nose pliers. That's right, they're called round nose pliers, that's what they are. And flat nose pliers, also very useless. No, not useless, useful, I promise. You also need some kind of file, because when you make the tip of the point of the pin part, of course it needs to be sharp. And you can use any kind of small file for that. I usually buy pretty cheap ones from building, what you call them, big shops that sell building materials and things. When you're just working with bronze and copper and wire and not so fancy materials, I find these work fine. They work for me. I don't buy the super expensive ones. So you have to start, and you have to decide how big you want your fibula to be, and I decide maybe to make the pin part 3.5 centimeter long or something in that direction. Now, this is a bit tricky for me because I have to sort of look in a mirror what I'm doing when I'm filming, and also, do. So it might look a bit clumsier than I usually do. But I promise, this usually takes about 1.5 minutes to make if you don't try to be, try to teach someone and talk at the same time and look at the video screen and do. But what you have to do is that you decide how long you want the pin part to be. Now, every safety pin also has some sort of spring function, something that gives the fibula tension so it actually stays closed. And the easiest way to make that one is to use your round nose pliers. Put it like this, and you just twist as far as you can, and then you have to change your grip, and you make a nice tight round, around the one of the nose part of the pliers. Don't know what that is actually called in English. And focus is not so good, but maybe somewhere there. And I keep twisting it nicely and tighty around the tight. And you see now I have a ring, but I want the pin, and I want this part, which will become what I call the bow, the upper part of the safety pin or the fibula to point in the same direction as the pin. So I just continue twisting around, as you see now. And now I have a nice round double sort of spring-like thing. And you can see there's a pretty good tension in this now. Now I just have to decide what the bow should look like, and usually they look somewhat like this, a bit higher towards the back end, if this is the back end, and it sort of goes down to meet the pin on this side. And I shall try to make a nice soft bow. Might become a little bit not so beautiful, but I usually just try to bend it so I get some sort of shape that's similar to what I want. And I want it a little bit higher, more towards the back. And now it looks something like this. Here you go. So far so good. I'm sorry about the lack of focus sometimes. Now I have a pin, I have the spring, I have the bow, but I have no catch. And I need a catch. And how I decide to make the catch, or how large I need the catch to be, is usually I look what I think is a nice proportion, how far out I want my pin to stick from the catch, because the catch is going to be about here on this pin, I think, where the two wires cross. And I usually cut about as long as the pin sticks out. That's how much I use to create the catch part, which is basically a hook. I just bend up the wire. And for that I use my side cutter. So somewhere like this, maybe. And please make sure, now it's hard for me to do this nicely, but you should always, when you use a cutter and work with wire, make sure you have control of both parts, both the part that you're cutting off and the part that you want to keep, because they can fly when you cut. So don't make it fly, because it can hit someone or even you in the eye. So also one should of course always use safety goggles. I have reading glasses which protect me, maybe not good enough, but I am pretty good at keeping track of the bits. But if you're not used to using pliers and cutting little pieces of wire, please use some sort of safety glasses. So now our fibula looks like this. And what you now want to do is create that hook, like we said. And you basically just make sure you choose the right part so you don't make the hook on the pin. It might sound stupid, but it has happened to me. So this part, this is where I make the hook on this end. It's really hard to show you, but you know what I mean. The bow part. And I take the bow part, I bend away the needle a little bit, and there's a nice tension, you see? Nice tension because of the spring tension. And I bend the needle pin part away a bit so I can work freely with the bow part where I want the hook. And here I just take my round nose pliers again, and I just make a bend. I just decide where to put the bend, and I just bend it upwards like this. Now this won't work, we can certainly see that. So what you have to do to be able to hook the pin into the hook there to the catch is that you, of course, you have to bend the little hook 90 degrees towards against the direction of the fibula. So you have to turn it. And I use the flat nose pliers for that. Here's the flat nose pliers, and I just hold on to it, something like this, and then I just turn. And I also bend, so it looks something like this now. You see the difference? Wrong way. Something like this. So now is the question, can I catch the pin in that one? Yes, I can. Look. Now, you might want it to look a little bit nicer than this. That's when you use your flat nose pliers as well. And I usually also like to have the catch to be a little bit tighter, so there's a little bit of resistance when I push in the needle into the catch, the pin into the catch, because then it sits a bit safer. And for this I just use the flat nose pliers again, and I straighten a bit because I want it to be a bit more straight. And then what I do is that I just flatten the thing a little, the hook a bit. I just make it a little bit tighter. I think that might have been a bit too tight actually. We'll see. Yeah, I have to open it up again a little bit. Right. Open it up again a little bit. And hey, it worked. And now, because it lost its shape a bit, I just have to make little adjustments so I get that nice pretty shape that I want. And it's easy, you can just bend it until you're happy with it actually. It holds its shape quite nicely. And here we go. This is what we have just now. Not perfect, but what you will make will be much more perfect because you can concentrate on actually making the pin. And now we have one thing left to do, of course. This is not sharp yet. I don't know if you can see. There we go. Not a very sharp point at all, only it's a little bit sharp because it's the way it was cut, the wire. So I open it up a bit and then I take my file and I just file until I think I have a point that is sharp enough. And it doesn't have to be perfect at all. It just needs to be sharp enough to go through the fabric well enough so it doesn't actually tear the fabric. Because you don't want to do that. You just want it to have a pretty nice smooth point. It can take a little while to get it there. This is probably the thing that takes the longest time if you're not trying to make a video. Yeah, it's starting to get there, I think. And this one, you see, it's not perfect in shape. It is sharp. Let's see if I can get it to show. Ooh. It's not perfect, but it will go through fabric. And sometimes, if I feel fancy, I use some sort of softer, little bit softer piece of sanding paper, just to make the point a bit softer. And it's almost done. And it really isn't this difficult, because, you know, when you can concentrate on what you're doing instead of trying to talk at the same time, which I'm not really good at. But here we go. It's our fibula. And it didn't take 2 minutes this time, but I promise you, after you've made 1 or 2, they're going to take 2 minutes. And if you want to do it be more fancy at some point, you can also flatten the end, the hook, by just before you bend the hook, you can just hammer it a little bit with a hammer on something hard. I have a little jeweler's block, but it doesn't have to be. I mean, it can be anything that you can hammer a little bit on without damaging it. You can use as a surface. It just needs to be a hard surface. It just makes it look a little bit more worked, I guess. I don't know if you can see it. Same thing that on this one, I hammered the bow just a little bit to flatten it, just because I think it sort of looks pretty. So, yeah, that's how you make a fibula. I hope you understood. Bye-bye. Ding, 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 ding.